Belgrade, Serbia, August 2024. Around 25,000 people protest against the opening of a massive lithium mine in the Serbian Jadar Valley by the British-Australian mining company Rio Tinto. The people are furious. In 2022, the Serbian government had stopped this project, only to reinstate it 2 years later. The people are infuriated because the mine will destroy nature and agriculture, so they claim.
Jer nikome neće da treba država koja je postala otpad, koja je postala trovačnica.
Moj razlog je što je kompletan biznis plan svih rudara litijumaša na svetu otimanje para od poreskih obveznika.
Why are so many Serbs so opposed to the lithium mine? Is it truly the fear of pollution and environmental damage? Or could there be other reasons? Climate expert and environmental scientist Peter Tom Jones wants to find out.
These demonstrations are very strange for me because lithium is the essential element in our transition to climate neutrality. We need lithium for our batteries, for clean mobility, for energy storage. This is a huge paradox.
It is a paradox. Today, there are no operational lithium mines in Europe, despite the fact that there are multiple lithium deposits spread all over the continent. And the Serbian deposit stands out as by far the largest. This could potentially make Europe almost self-sufficient in lithium. That's why the European Union signed a strategic partnership with Serbia in the summer of 24. They agreed to work together on a green and clean future. But that deal with the European Union fueled even more protests.
So this map shows the huge potential for lithium mining in Europe. We have deposits from Portugal right up to Finland, but the biggest one of all is positioned here in Serbia, on the border of Western Europe and Russia. And that makes it quite complicated to get this mine opened.
Dr. Peter Tom Jones wants to get to the bottom of this case. That's why he's traveling to Serbia.
Hallo, goedenavond, alstublieft.
Apart from being the director of the KU Leuven Institute for Sustainable Metals and Minerals in Belgium, he is also a renowned climate author. So he is well aware of the importance of responsible mining and recycling for the fight against climate change.
Without metals, there is no clean technology. And without clean technology, there is no transition to climate neutrality. So we're going to need to have some mining in the world in order to make this transition. The problem is that mining has such a bad reputation all over the world. And yet, in Europe, we can do it in a different way. We can do it in an ESG-friendly way. And that's what I want to find out, to see how it can be done in a better way.
Alsjeblieft, meneer Van Heijsnel.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Peter Tom Jones is traveling to the Jadar Valley, a rural area in the western part of Serbia, close to the city of Loznica. He will speak with both the supporters and critics of the Jadar mining project. His first encounter is with Marijanti Babic, the country head of Rio Tinto in Serbia. This British-Australian mining company wants to invest $2.4 billion in this very controversial new lithium mine, which could make Serbia Europe's leading lithium producer.
The now famous Jadar Valley. From here you can see where we intend, if everything goes well, to build the Jadar project. If you look at that line, and maybe I can explain it here, we are talking about a surface area of 220 hectares above ground. No, that's not big.
It's not big?
If you think about, for example, the Kolubara mine in another part of Serbia, which is an open pit mine, that's 60,000.
Oh, you must be joking.
So, no.
That's just the footprint you see on top.
Yes, so that's the benefit you get from an underground mine. So if you look at this picture, imagine that this is that area here. The mine's underground. You don't see it. You see only...
It's the invisible mine.
Yes, exactly, an invisible mine, which is completely underground. So everything around the mine remains the same It is a very modern mine that will be operated from a control room. Everything will be controlled electronically. So when you think about Jadar, the area that maybe people will see from this point if Jadar is built is rather small. Everything around the area and around the fence will continue to be the way it is because we will make sure that the farming exists exactly the same. There is no land subsidence.
And still there is so much protest.
Yes, there are protests. Unfortunately, the narrative has been based on disinformation, and what we are struggling is actually to see a fact-based dialogue and discussion about the merits of this project.
During the interview, members of the local resistance group, Nadamo Jadar, keep passing by, filming the Serbian head of Rio Tinto while trying to intimidate her.
Džaba obilazite, gospođo.
Džaba, gospođo.
Nema ovdje ništa za vas. Ovo je naš životni prostor. Čuli, bit ćemo ovo životima da branimo.
Baš tako, gospođo.
Ako hoćete da padne krv, onda može.
So what was that? What were they saying?
So they were saying you're working here for nothing, you will not do this project, there will be blood, we'll defend this with our lives.
There will be blood.
Yes.
Does this happen a lot?
Every time any of our colleagues go in the field, we have to do a proper full risk assessment to determine the security aspects because this is happening every time. Every time any of us goes out in the field to do anything, they're filming us here.
Oh God.
They connect to each other over the phones, they call each other. Very often they come and they will surround the people. What we've seen is people being publicly shamed on social media for working on this project, being called traitors.
With all this intimidation, it's easy to forget that Rio Tinto was warmly welcomed in Serbia for over 15 years. The 2004 discovery of lithium in the Jadar Valley promised a much-needed boost for Serbia as the country was still recovering from the economic sanctions.
Yes, this is just a part.
People called this new lithium mineral Serbian kryptonite, referring to the Superman films. Yet the official name of the mineral is Jadarite.
Yes, here we see examples of the drill core and Jadarite. So if you look at this core, the white dots that you see here are the Jadarite. Jadarite was declared as a new mineral in 2006.
So this is a unique material in the world?
Yes, this is a unique material in the world. It hasn't been found anywhere else to date. It is unique because it contains concentrations of both borates and lithium.
And how rich is it in lithium?
It is probably double than what we see in any other of the European deposits of lithium.
And how many electric vehicles can you provide in terms of the batteries per year?
In production, you could produce enough lithium out of Jadar to power about 1 million electric vehicles a year.
That's quite a lot.
The reaction of the locals towards Rio Tinto changed in 2020 when they began their land acquisition program. The company purchased 51 houses, compensating the owners for their property and moving costs. The former owners sold anything valuable, leaving behind a bleak scenery. The generous payouts to those whose homes were bought by Rio Tinto created a rift among the villagers, especially with those whose properties weren't needed.
So, can you tell us what you think about the Rio Tinto lithium project?
Šta mislite o Rio Tinto i o projektu litijuma?
To će da bude. To će da bude, to ne može niko usporiti. Oni su ovo više od 20 godina. Ne može to niko da... Niti će ko to može da vrati te pare. Niko. Mnogo oni su da uložili u para, puteve, poradili, svašta su radili, školu adaptirali, sve su sredili.
And the people who sold their houses, did they get enough money for it?
A ovi što su prodali kuće su dobili dovoljno para za to?
Jo, a šta su? Dobili su ogromne pare za to. Za stare kuće, male, dobili su po 100.000 evra, po 200, to su ogromne pare davate. Po 300, ljudi su se čudili kad su dobili tolike pare. Čudili se ljudi. Kupovali stanove, auta, sve živo su pokupovali. Znaš kad dobili? E sad, on su bili sretni, a mi to nismo otkupljeni, mi nemamo ništa.
While Dr. Jones is talking to Radmila, people of the resistance movement, Nedamo Yada, are approaching him. They want to express their point of view.
So what is your main concern with this lithium project by Rio Tinto?
Pa nema brige. Rudnika neće biti.
But the president wants the mining project to happen.
Pa predsjednik želi da se rudarski projekat Jadar otvori, jer je on glavni lobista Rio Tinta.
Are you afraid of environmental pollution? Is that the main cause?
Ako bi došlo do realizacije projekta Jadra, života ovdje nema.
Isn't it sad that you have these huge lithium resources in this country and you can't use them to become rich in this country?
Pa obogatila se Evropa. Evropa bi dobila litijumske baterije, zdravu životnu sredinu, oni bi se vozali u tim automobilima na struju, a Srbija bi postala evropska deponija i dobili bi razne bolesti, razne kancere.
It's rather striking to see how far Nedamo Yada is willing to go to stop the lithium mine.
Mi smo spremni svoje živote da damo za ovu borbu protiv kompanije Rio Tinto.
What do you mean with sacrificing your own life?
Pa znači da ćemo leći pod bagere, da ćemo ih zapaliti bilo šta.
The local farmers had their own meeting place where they discuss actions against Rio Tinto, and they are not willing to compromise.
Is there a way you can make a deal with Rio Tinto, some kind of compromise where more money flows into the region?
Nema, nema razgovora, nema
dogovora. Ni Kinezi, ni Tinto, niko.
Ni Rusi, niko.
Nema cenu, naša voda, naša zemlja, nema cenu. I da je sve po
evropskim standardima
čisto 100%.
Imamo pravo po našem ustavu, naš ustav nas brani da mi uživamo u ovome svemu.
These farmers refer to their history. Also in the past, there were conflicts with Western and Central European countries here in the Jadar Valley.
So you want a referendum then?
Nema referenduma.
Nema. Mi ćemo biti referendum njima.
Bio je referendum 1914. na Ceru.
I u Dragincu 41.
Jeste, tu je.
No referendum. We had our referendum in 1914 in Cer.
Tu je 20.000 naših izginulo.
Where 20,000 people of our people died and gave their lives for this country.
1914.
a 41. streljano od strane SS jedinica Wehrmachta. Tu je i moja familija stradala.
To su zadnji Srbi.
305 dece ispod 10 godina je ubijeno.
I ubijali su iz puški da je Rio Tinto dao čelik za puške Franku i da, Maschingewehr. Ima na internetu, možda se naći.
Rio Tinto sarađivao sa fašistima. Sada Nemci i Rio Tinto ponovo došli.
Mnogo nas vređa to.
A dobro je Scholz i Macron i ovaj engleski, sav nuklearni, hemijski, bilo koji otpad bi u Srbiju, u ove tunele.
You see this as a war?
Da.
Normalno.
To sam rekao pre 4 godine.
That's exactly what I said. We've been waging this war
Mi smo u ratu, da.
We're at war.
For these Serbian protesters, the fight against Rio Tinto feels like a real war. But not everyone is against the mine in the Jadar Valley.
Are all the people here against the project?
Nije par njih, nisu svi.
Just a small group.
Just a small group.
Pa to malo njih koji ovi šalju iz inostranstva pare i oni imaju pare, ti na koliko hoćeš. Tač on kad dobije po 20-30 mesečno, šta njih briga? On ima račun da žvaće i da priča kako mu ovaj kaže, što da neće, šta ga briga.
So then that begs the question, who's paying them?
Pa oni to tako kažu, a ko odakle dobijaju pare, mi to ne znamo. Niti će oni to da kažu. Ko će da kaže, a dobijamo odavde pare. Neće ti niko reći.
They won't say it. We don't know where they're getting.
Ali neće oni da protestuju džabe.
They won't say it, but they won't protest for nothing.
Anyway, you are very brave to talk to us.
Vi ste baš
Thank
hrabri
you.
što ste pričali sa nama. Hvala vam.
Pa dobro, eto. I mogu da makar čokoladu.
Can I get at least a chocolate?
Makar to imate u kombiju, nemate.
Not even a chocolate.
Nema čokolada. Nisam džabe priča, svi dobijaju nešto, a mi dobijamo
Everybody
ništa.
keeps on getting something and we keep on getting nothing. Not even a chocolate.
Rio Tinto, marši Srbije! Marši Srbije!
Whether or not the local resistance is paid, it doesn't explain those huge protests in the Serbian capital Belgrade.
Je li moguće da iza ovih vrata sede ljudi kojima je bitniji samo još jedan mandat?
The opposition is very diverse. Local farmers, urban environmentalists, pro-Russian Serbian nationalists, all united against the project.
The mining industry is planning to destroy Serbia's most fertile land.
Even Serbian celebrities are taking a stand.
So even the Serbian sports star Novak Djokovic, at a certain moment, was part of this opposition to the mining project. He sent out this famous tweet here, which really caused a stir in this society. It just shows how complex and diverse the opposition to this mining project really is.
Dr. Jones wants to understand why so many people oppose this project, despite its expected economic and climate benefits. It has split the country into two groups, those in favor and those against. Maybe anthropologist Jelena Vasiljevic from the University of Belgrade can provide some answers.
These protests here in Belgrade, where are they coming from?
Part of it is it's against mining of lithium. Some part of it has to do with that and with different arguments about why the other project is complicated, the complex. But part of it has to do with the dissatisfaction with this political regime and how this whole process has been conducted in non-transparent and non-democratic way. So many grievances are actually being articulated in this protest.
The lack of trust in the government here is very loud, it's very clear. Where is it coming from?
We also have bad experiences with previous projects. So we had many other projects that were declared of national interest, and they were all conducted in non-transparent and non-democratic ways.
If Rio Tinto would be a Serbian company, do you think the project would have been?
No, partially it has to do with bad history of Rio Tinto. That is true. So it's not only about economy, it's not only about how you use sustainable raw materials, it's how what you politically do with it. So this is why people are distrustful, and I would say they are right.
Anthropologist Jelena Vasiljevic points the finger at the current regime, which according to her is sliding under President Vučić towards autocracy. This can be seen in the fierce suppression of the protests in Belgrade and the unlawful arrests of many activists. The Rio Tinto lithium mining project has become very political.
Should there be a referendum on this project?
No referendum. I don't think it's a good idea because referendum, it's always dependent on how you frame the question and also political climate. Not only that, but political climate then takes a lot. I mean, political climate is important and you also have to have informed public. How can you run a referendum when citizens are not informed enough?
But at this moment, there is no project that has had so much open information about the project than this one. So in that way, you can't say
but
there's no information.
But at the same time, you could also claim rightfully that there has never been a project that stirred so much confusion and so many opposing and different views as this one. You know, just take the fact that at one point the government said and they promised to the people, we stopped this project. It was a lie, but they said this to the people. We stopped this, but there will be no Rio Tinto. And then 2 years after, Constitutional Court says, oh, no, this is unconstitutional. And then, so how can you say that people know much about it? How can you say that people should trust the government with this project? Now they're staging something that looks like an open debate, even though we know that everything is already done. You know, so we needed to be more prepared for that.
But is this deep distrust in the government and Rio Tinto based on real facts, or is it the result of disinformation? Rio Tinto is convinced there's a lot of fake news. In their info center in Loznica, they've even created a fake news wall.
We have some examples here, I see. disinformation?
Exactly. So you see a lot of photos of open pit mine. We know this is an underground mine and it will not look like that. You see the explosions which are connected to the open pits and how people are scared. Here you have information that we will use sulfuric acid on 250 degrees, which is not true. We're using it at 90 degrees, as anyone can see from the information publicly available, that we will destroy the water sources for 85 million people, which is underground in Jadar. It is very easy to say something like you will burn the skin and lungs of people because you will have sulfuric rains, which is completely not true. But explaining the technology and how you use the sulfuric acid, it takes time.
It's easy to throw the mud at someone, but it's difficult to clean the shirts again. It takes much longer. It's the second law of thermodynamics. So clearly this is an organized disinformation campaign. Who's behind it? Is it the Russians?
We don't know. Well, we know it is very well organized. And if this is happening to a company like Rio Tinto, you can imagine what can be happening to other companies that don't have the strength to actually sustain with all of this.
So, yes, what do you then do about this? What is your strategy?
The first thing is we organize community meetings to meet with the community face-to-face. We've met more than 3,000 people so far in the past year. And we've committed to radical transparency. That is, we put all the information on our webpage, respond to all media inquiries, and rebuttal everything that's fake news.
On the streets of Loznica, the largest city close to the Jadar Valley, the anxiety is apparent. Most people avoid the camera, while others are not so well informed.
I think this lithium, what I have read, is not so healthy. But Serbia has problems with uranium from the NATO bombing, and I think this stuff with the lithium, I don't know, if it's oil or if it's gas, I would say okay.
And you prefer oil over lithium?
No, yes, I think so, because Saudi Arabia, they are all healthy, and I don't know, in Russia, they don't have problems, I think, from gas. But I think from lithium, I don't know.
We don't have open media space here. We don't have an open media space here when you have normal media situation. We don't have media freedoms. So you have information coming from all sorts of sources, and people really don't know who to trust. It's very difficult. You cannot really turn to media for your information.
The fake news always seems to come from one media group that owns several TV stations and newspapers. The United Media Group, owned by Dragan Solak, the richest man in Serbia and a strong opponent of the Serbian government.
This is about the ecological studies results, and it goes on, and it goes on, goes on.
You get a lot of front page news.
Yes, 70 within 3 months.
But never a positive one.
No. We do respond to all the fake news and all the disinformation and misinformation.
It doesn't reach the front page.
It doesn't reach the front page. It doesn't get the reach.
So I see that almost all of these headlines are in 2 papers.
These are actually, this is considered a quality newspaper in the country. It's the polarization in the media, and this media group constantly reports primarily against the lithium and against the projects.
This reminds me of the merchants of doubt strategy that was used by the oil industry to block climate change action. It's exactly the same strategy, merchants of doubt.
Yes, it might be. What it's creating fear in people. So people constantly read all these horrifying stories about what the project's going to do.
Fear here, not merchants of doubt, merchants of fear.
How will the government address this significant issue of distrust and disinformation, which could potentially lead to the overthrow of the current administration? In the impressive Palace of Serbia, Dr. Jones has the opportunity to speak with the Minister of Mining and Energy, Dubravka Dedović-Handanović.
Thank you. Hello. Okay, thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Welcome. Nice
Dear
to
Minister,
meet you too.
thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming and for your interest.
I would love to talk to you about the Jadar project. May I?
With my great pleasure.
Okay.
Please.
Thank you. We see immediately very strange protests, unnatural coalitions. How do you look at these protests?
Luckily, those protests lasted a limited period of time. However, when it comes to disinformation and the campaign in particular around this project, it has been so violent that even really the ordinary people start having questions.
And how do you think you can improve the trust of the Serbian community in the fact that this project will be done with the highest and the best possible ESG standards?
We have engaged in various direct dialogue with the citizens. What Serbian government view is that this project should be developed as if Serbia was already a member state. This will ensure, of course, that the project is delivered on sustainable basis, in line with environmental standards. And I think this creates trust.
One of the other arguments is that Serbia will become a mining colony and an EU sacrifice zone to produce lithium materials that are then transported to Germany for the rich Germans in their big SUVs. Can you speak about the plans to develop a Serbian supply chain?
One of our main requirements also when we discussed the Memorandum of Cooperation with the European Union is that we create value chain in Serbia sooner than later. So in that context, I really don't distinguish so much between European market and Serbian market.
But who is responsible for all this disinformation? The minister doesn't directly blame the Russians, who are also a key economic partner. Instead, she points to the opposition. They feel backed by some experts and scientists who have taken a stance in this debate. They argue that lithium mining is toxic.
There's nothing new in this technology since the late 19th or early 20th century chemistry. You extract the ore, grind it to dust, and treat it with various acids. This expels a lot of residue and contaminated water. The operator takes the mineral he's interested in and exports it, while the tailings are left on the site, a burden to the local population. But when they leave, when they close the mine, the residues will continue to be leached by rainwater, and there'll be no one left to treat them. And that's when the catastrophe will hit the region.
Well, actually, as a metallurgist, I know a thing or two about the different lithium minerals, and Jadarite is an easy one. It's easy peasy to process Jadarite compared to spodumene, lepidolite, zinwaldite. Those are the difficult ones. Those require way more chemicals in harsher conditions.
In fact, you're absolutely right. There have been some scientific reports produced by some Serbian scientists opposing the project that actually came to wrong conclusions. But the reason, and this now has been revealed, is that they have been analyzing different projects than Jadar, who, as you say, need more chemicals, have different, much more difficult ways of extraction, and potentially are more dangerous. But you know, it's very difficult to fight those campaigns that are really meant to discredit the project. What I'm certain is that if there was a change in political scene, and these people would be in power, the project would not be stopped, because they know that it is good for our future.
But the resistance group Ne Damo Jadar strongly disagrees. This broken piezometer, installed by Rio Tinto to measure groundwater pressure at depth, is meant to provide evidence.
Ova bušotina curi, izlazi razni otrovi. Sami vidite da ništa oko ove bušotine ne raste. Ni ambrozija, vidite kakva je soja ovdje blizu bušotine, vidite kakva je dole. Znači, izlaze razni otrovi.
Do you think that when you are on top of the underground mine, that agriculture will become impossible?
U polju postoje bušotine koje su u trostrukom kavezu, koje su radioaktivne. I zapečaćene su u 3 katanca. 3 ovako ima. Znači, institut Vinča je zatvorio te bušotine zbog velike radijacije.
Did you say it was radioactive, the material?
Yeah.
So you don't trust that this can be done in a good way?
Ne.
Can't the Serbian government monitor the process so that the strictest rules are followed?
Ne, zato što je vlada korumpirana i što ne verujemo našoj vladi. Samo našim stručnjacima koji su rekli da projekat Jadar ne dolazi u obzir u Srbiji.
But you trust your experts?
Ali verujete svojim stručnjacima?
Da, samo našim stručnjacima.
Your experts. So all experts are equal,
Dragana
but some
Đorđević.
experts are more equal than others.
Da.
That's George Orwell, Animal Farm.
Naši su najbolji.
Dr. Jones reached out to some of the scientists who are negative about the Jadar project, but they were reluctant to collaborate. Chad Blewett, the Australian managing director of the Jadar project, is growing frustrated with the ongoing accusations. However, he understands that mining can only proceed with local public support. That's why he aims to clarify 3 major misunderstandings about the Jadar project once and for all.
So one of the things I keep hearing is that the ore body here is radioactive and that the blue piezometers are spilling radioactive water. What say you?
Yes, so that's a complete fallacy. The ore body is not radioactive, and because of the questions, we bought a Geiger counter. So I'm going to show you this now, and we're in a room full of Jadarite. And let's have a look at the reading there, 0.12. Let's also compare it to an apple. Here we go. It's the same.
It's gone up.
Look, 0.123. And again, it's background radiation. The ore body is not radioactive. We're not secretly mining uranium. It's Jadarite.
There's another thing I keep hearing, that the mineral processing of Jadarite involves concentrated acid at 250 degrees centigrade, and you're going to create huge acid spills all over the place.
Yeah, this is another area of disinformation aimed at scaring people because it's linked to human health, which is a basic human right. So we'll have a look through the process plant. This is a 3D design of the process plant. And when we think about processing Jadarite, we have a patent application that people can Google online. It shows that the process is at 90 degrees.
Not 250.
Not 250. It's in a completely closed system. There's a number of different safety controls in accordance with the highest standards in the world. So,
and how acid is the solution you're using to get the lithium out?
pH is 3, similar to a can of Diet Coke. It's less acidic than your stomach acids. So Jadarite's actually, it's a unique mineral, much simpler, less energy intensive to process.
Another elephant in the room is that there is a huge aquifer below this spot, and you're going to pollute it. And this supplies water to 80 million people.
It's a complete, utter fabrication. So all of the information that's under here is geological information. It's come from our drilling. So over 200 kilometres of drilling, 518 unique holes, some going down a kilometre. Local wells go down 25 metres. If there was an underground lake, an aquifer, we would have found it. It just does not exist.
So to make it clear, there is no lake below this spot?
There is none. And all of the data that we've got from our drilling, we've passed on to the government. It's available for anyone to review at any time.
Despite the protests, some companies are eager for the lithium mine to open. One such company is battery manufacturer 11ES. They believe this mine will enable Serbia to establish a full value chain from mine to electric vehicle. Such a strategy has made China successful worldwide. Nemanja Mikac, the CEO of 11ES, is convinced that Serbia must seize this opportunity.
It means a revolution in economic growth in the country. And actually this product you see here, it's the first LFP battery made in Europe several years ago already. And it's lithium iron phosphate, which actually has lithium carbonate in itself, which basically connects the whole value chain.
So Jadar will produce the lithium carbonate for your batteries?
That's the hope for the future, that we have everything local and that we basically have the first LFP value chain outside of Asia present in Europe.
Because now you are dependent on China for your lithium
That's
carbonate?
correct. Today everything is basically coming from China because it's a single market where everything is created from the raw materials. But it's about to change in the next years. We have to be smart about it. And if we do the right things, we will have one of the largest economic opportunities of our lifetime.
So how many jobs are we talking about in Serbia?
We're talking 20,000 jobs
20,000?
20,000 new jobs created only by the battery value chain industry.
And still some people here are against the whole lithium idea.
Story is a bit emotional. You have to look at it from a rational perspective. There's a certain story around it, but the facts are there. It's a 10 to 12 billion euro market only in Serbia with 20,000 new jobs.
And let's not forget it's supporting the transition to climate neutrality.
It's absolutely the essence of climate neutrality. And as you know, this will not only be used in cars, this thing will be used in buses, in trucks, in construction machinery, in your home, in the storage, in large industrial solar parks. So it's the central item of the energy storage revolution we're about to face.
Car manufacturer Stellantis announced plans to build its Fiat Grande Panda electric car in Serbia. This development signifies the realization of a full mine-to-EV value chain in Europe within a highly competitive market.
Because we are going to be challenged, and I would say brutally challenged, by the Chinese offensive on the European market. And we at Stellantis, we are ready for the fight.
Could this large lithium mine in Serbia benefit the European Union and its industry? European car and battery manufacturers are struggling to compete with China. Could more responsible lithium mining in Europe be the solution? In the European Parliament, Dr. Jones meets the German MEP Hildegard Bentley. She has played a key role in developing and refining Europe's Critical Raw Materials Act. This act aims to secure Europe's raw materials supply chain and strengthen the continent's resilience.
So how important is the lithium supply chain for Europe?
It is very important because we are super dependent currently from one supplier, which is China. So we have to face the situation that the supply chain is interrupted. China could hit us hard with stopping lithium imports from China. And we want to prepare for this situation.
So that means domestic mining and refining in Europe.
In Europe, that we have a current inflow of potential battery production in Europe.
In Serbia, the people say if the rich Europeans want to drive fancy electric vehicles, let them first mine their own lithium mines.
Well, I hope that the Serbian population understands that this is a huge opportunity to become part of a supply value chain of the most important sector in Europe, the automotive sector.
But still, the Serbs don't trust the European Union.
Well, we have a clear strategy that we want to invest into mining and in the battery production, and we make an offer. The European Union has to be very clear, and also the German government has been very clear about it, that it's a huge offer, which you can take or which you can reject. But what's the alternative? This means staying rural and staying with agricultural production. This is also a choice. But we offer something to Serbia.
Is the opening of the Jadar lithium mine a precondition for Serbia to become part of the European Union?
No, certainly not. But it would show that they embrace the values we're having. That means to have sustainable industries, to adhere to high standards, to become more independent from autocracies like China or Russia. So it is an offer, and it can be rejected or it can be accepted.
A lithium mine as leverage for the EU membership of Serbia. It's not something that Jelena Vasiljevic supports.
Do you think the lithium project is also related to Serbia becoming part of the European Union?
It shouldn't be that. If you look at the acquis, if you look at the EU, it would be sad if that is the case. It would be really sad if that is the case, because we good-hearted people, we want to think that EU accession is about, complying to the acquis, and because it's not about the trade-off. If that would be the case, it would be very sad for the EU. If that's the case, like if you accept this, then you will become part of the EU. I don't think this is how countries should become members of the EU.
So no free media, no real rule of law. So how can you get into the European Union then?
I just hope that EU will press Serbian government to reform, to implement democratizing principles, to implement democratic media freedom. So I think that this must be done from the part of the EU. So they should really be very strict on this and not on these geostrategic issues.
So the future of Serbia, does it lie in the West or in the East?
I hope it lies on the West.
In this historic church in Mechelen, Belgium, Dr. Peter Tom Jones seeks to find common ground between civil society and the mining industry.
So we'll now kick off with the SLO panel events on responsible mining in Europe.
Responsible mining involves an environmentally and socially friendly approach where benefits are shared with the local community, allowing the possibility to achieve and maintain a social license to operate. However, not everyone supports this SLO concept. The protesters remain silent, but some of their banners refer to the situation in the Jadar Valley in Serbia.
So this is very disappointing. We organized this event today to engage with civil society to talk about the responsible mining model, but they refused to enter, they refused to speak to us. They prefer to stand outside and demonstrate, but they're really barking up the wrong tree. They should be demonstrating against the oil industry, not against the metal producing industry that is producing the metals for the clean technologies that we need to save the climate. Basically, we should be allies, not opponents. I'm very disappointed to see this.
But are all environmentalists against the mining industry? And doesn't the mining industry also need to reflect on its practices?
Here you go.
These are questions for Julia Poliskanova from Transport and Environment. Her organization represents a coalition of over 60 environmental NGOs across Europe. She acknowledges that lithium mining in Europe is necessary, but she also understands the sources of the criticism.
So you can have different kinds of environmentalism, right? You have organizations which are anti and that operate by protest, and you have environmental organizations that rely on evidence, for example, we as TNE, but also rely very much on engaging. We engage with politicians, we engage with companies to raise the standards of mining, but understand, and we understand that we still will need a lot more critical minerals for the technologies like batteries and wind turbines.
So you're trying to be constructive in your environmentalism?
We are constructive in the way we approach things, but we're not scared to call companies out. When something's not done right, we say so. However, we understand that only by working together we can build this resilient supply chain in Europe.
But still, many environmental activists simply don't trust these mining companies.
They don't trust them, and sometimes they also have a good reason not to. Over the past, we have a lot of evidence of corruption, of mismanagement, dirty rivers, dangerous chemicals, etc. So there's also a responsibility for the mining companies to break with the past and do things differently.
Do you see differences in mining companies?
Certainly. I believe that today there are mining companies who are genuinely trying to do things better. They're trying to engage. They're also really investing a lot more in cleaner technologies, for example. But there's also companies that are just getting away with this still. Some big companies, I don't want to name the names, but they're just getting away with it.
So in which camp do you put Rio Tinto then?
I think Rio Tinto are trying to do a lot of things right or better. There's always room for improvement, but they are applying best technologies on tailings, for example. They're trying to engage communities. So for me, they're in a better camp.
Rio Tinto's long history has some dark chapters that can't be ignored.
Hello. Morning, Sinead.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. We are helping with.
Like soil and water contamination, tailings dam failures, and landslide incidents. This is a question for Sinead Kaufman, who leads the minerals division of Rio Tinto worldwide.
I think the mining industry as a whole has a legacy of poorly closed mines, often mines that weren't operated safely. And the industry has changed over time. I've worked in mining now for 27 years. I've seen huge changes. They're very different to the mines that were built 150 years ago. The same as factories are completely different to what was built in that time as well.
The former CEO once said that he wasn't proud of the history of Rio Tinto in Australia. So again, it's emotional, and how do you get rid of that image?
I think we can't manage it as an image in a way. I think it's really around just being very clear on what is our history, what is our past. And we actually published a book last year at our 150th anniversary. And in that, we were very deliberate to share what we've done over the history of Rio Tinto, whether it's a positive story or a negative story. And we've got to really acknowledge and own those events.
In 2020, a significant event unfolded in Australia with the destruction of an Aboriginal cave. During mining operations by Rio Tinto, a detonation led to the collapse of this sacred site, resulting in the loss of a valuable piece of Aboriginal cultural heritage.
They're allowed to destroy our artefacts, they're allowed to destroy our history and not get reprimanded. This is a crime. This is a crime, people.
And for Rio Tinto specifically, the most recent tragedy for us was the Juukan Gorge destruction of caves, Aboriginal caves in Australia, in the Pilbara. What happened at Juukan Gorge, which was an absolutely shameful moment in the history of Rio Tinto, and something that we've really focused on learning from and moving forward with traditional owners in Australia, but also recognising that listening to people locally is critical to success in the industry.
Rio Tinto asserts that they have learned from past mistakes. They are now addressing the concerns and demands of the Serbian population while refining their original plans.
We heard concerns about the waste tailings, and we've changed the tailings design since then. We've heard concerns about water management, and we've included a couple of €100 million of additional cost into the project to be able to build a water treatment system that will ensure good water quality. And we've also shared the story much better of what Jadar is. But for us, when we talk mine of the future, that has to be about ESG standards that are impeccable, that can be met internationally.
The clock is ticking, of course. We are in a global lithium race. So what is your internal deadline for making sure this project actually comes to fruition?
So internally, we want to build the project as soon as we can. But if people are not comfortable, there needs to be continued debate and continued discussion to allow that to happen.
Pozdravim sve prisutne iz Rio Tinta ljude kojima ćete vi, koji ste sa mnom razgovarali kao čovjekom koji je dugo godina radio u zadrugarstvu, bio sa ljudima na terenu, da sve one zabune koje imate, znači postavljajući.
So tonight we're going to visit a locals event where Rio Tinto will present the project to the local population. Rio Tinto and local population, it's always potential dynamite. Even the police are present here in case something happens. So let's see what will happen today.
Rio Tinto has assembled a diverse team of experts specializing in areas such as mineral processing, environmental protection, and water and waste management. Of course, the locals have many questions.
Da li je istina, da mi kažete, da će otpad ići u Gornju Borinu, pošto se pravi put i ovih koji su protiv vas kažu oni će taj otpad da teraju u Gornju Borinu. To je jedno pitanje za vas.
At these small community events, Rio Tinto is working to build trust from the ground up. In this particular case, the atmosphere is positive, with no hostility towards the mining company. In fact, some locals even laugh off false accusations and exaggerations.
Ti radnici koji budu radili rudnik, oni će umreti za pola godine. Tako kažu opozicija. Da ćete vi dovesti druge da opet umru za pola godine, a opet treće. Znači, zatvorite usta opozicija na neki način, znači, pokušajte da im zatvorite usta, ako možete.
Over the course of a year, Rio Tinto conducted 150 events in and around the Jadar Valley. Their efforts have proven to be quite effective.
Hvala vam puno na vremenu.
Tonight gave me new hope that in a world full of disinformation, it's still possible to build up trust through bottom-up engagement of people. Unfortunately, time is not on our side as the global climate crisis is spiraling out of control. The pressing question for Serbia now is, will it, despite all its internal political contradictions, embrace this lithium economy of the future? That is the question. Has your opinion changed after listening to these expositions today?
U nekom smislu promenjeno je pozitivno, jer sam saznao više nego što sam dosaznao.
Da.
Vi ste protiv projekta?
Da, mi smo za projekat.
Trebali bi svi da dođu i sa pozitivnim i negativnim mišljenjem o Rio Tintu, da poslušaju i ja mislim da ti koji ne veruju to, da bi promenili mišljenje, da bi bili za.
A mislim da se pojavilo više iz neznanja nego iz neke, da kažemo, i politički je to malo interpretira.
Ljudi u Srbiji nisu protiv rudnika. Ljudi su Srbi protiv Vučića.